He could be out of the hospital as soon as Monday. America is listening to Fox News.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you're wearing a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific Rosebud branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Well, as President Trump undergoes treatment for COVID-19 and several of his Republican allies and lawmakers have also been infected with the virus, it brings up questions about how this will affect upcoming political events like the vice presidential debate. Biden Deputy Campaign Manager Kate Bedingfield tells ABC's This Week they're prepared and ready to take the stage.
We have every expectation that the Debate Commission take all necessary precautions to ensure that everybody who attends the debate is safe. Obviously, that includes distancing. That includes a requirement on masks. So we have every expectation that they will do that, provided that all of those expectations are met. Yes, absolutely. We look forward to any opportunity for Senator Harris and for Joe Biden to make their case directly to the American people.
And Democratic vice presidential nominee Senator Kamala Harris, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, will participate in the confirmation hearing of Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett. Republican Senator Tom Cotton says Harris will use this as an opportunity to go after Barrett.
I expect she'll launch the same kind of attacks that she did in the past, just like her fellow senator from California, Dianne Feinstein, attacked Amy Coney Barrett, saying the dogma lives loudly within you. Now, when I spoke with Judge Barrett, I said I regretted these attacks in the past, but unfortunately, I thought more of them were going to come in the future. I mean, you had some Democratic voices attacking her for adopting 2 Haitian children on social media. I'm afraid we're going to see more of that.
Republicans say they will begin Barrett's confirmation hearing on October 12th. And in sports, the showdown between the New England Patriots and the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs rescheduled to Monday night, pending coronavirus test results.
Further testing of both teams showed no new positives. Patriots quarterback Cam Newton was the only player to test positive on the Patriots. He immediately entered self-quarantine. As for the Chiefs, a practice squad quarterback on that team reportedly tested positive too.
Fox's Christina Coleman. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Hofady, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations. Check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play, or go to thepoint.gu. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I haven't said that for a couple of days, Jose.
You said it like you only said it yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I said it like I've memorized it, like I know it by heart.
It is ingrained.
Yeah, I suspected that someone came along and shook me in the middle of the night. I said, well-regulated.
Well, better that than a magnum point at their face.
I guess. So here we are, another episode of Tall Tales, and this is our favorite time of the week, the beginning of a brand new week here on Tall Tales. 5 whole days of Tall Tales ahead of us. Jose and I struggled through the weekend, 2 whole days with no Tall Tales, but we made it, and we're back. I noticed I got a little trouble with my Facebook here. I had some posts. I had a brown post, a gray post. Lynn McAfee and Pam Duvall were there, and all of a sudden I lost my live stream and I lost all my posts. So it's not because I erased you guys or something like that. And I hope that you can pop some stuff up there, because Tailgaters' Facebook comments are often extremely important parts of the program.
The stream rebooted.
Was that it?
That's what happened, yes.
Oh.
But we're live.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go to Zemi Ikotny. And I rebooted because I forgot to unpack my copy of the Constitution and my blue pencil, and I don't like to start Tall Tales without my blue pencil and my copy of the United States Constitution. So we're going to deviate from the routine a little bit today. Starting out with a Daily News editorial. Today's editorial is Trump's chance. Stop mocking masks. Embrace them instead, and say, so instead of calling this the Daily News editorial page, it should be relabeled as the Trump, as you were the TDS page of the Daily News, the Trump derangement syndrome page. But I found something on yesterday's editorial page that I think bears some looking into. It is not written about a local situation. However, it is a nice lead-in to a local situation, which you will see as I go into it. So here's Saturday's Daily News editorial. We are at one of those regular intervals when the subject of religious faith is allowed past the boundaries of the church doors. During presidential elections, believers are expected to line up and vote based on carefully selected values that make for great campaign ads. As a Catholic, I'm well aware that as a member of the largest single religious institution in the United States, I'm part of a voting bloc coveted by every candidate. But annoyingly, Catholic voters are expected to embrace only a subset of the issues that motivate us and overlook any anti-Catholic bigotry in a candidate's records that occurred when they were outside of the election spotlight, like Kamala Harris and Di-Fi and that gang, right?
Absolutely.
They never met a Catholic they couldn't dislike. As a Catholic, the issue central to my evaluation of every candidate is a matter of life and death. Abortion. I'm going to repeat that again. Abortion. I want you to notice I didn't say pro-life, which, is a lot more polite and much less offensive, but it skirts the truth. Abortion is abortion. And Kristen Hawkins, the author of this column here, that for Students for Life Action, has no problem putting it in print where it belongs. Abortion. My challenge to fellow Catholics is to consider this carefully. The science of the development of human life and the many harms of abortion for women and the preborn should be enough for us to react in horror to the loss of more than 60 million Americans since Roe versus Wade and Doe versus Bolton wiped out legal protections for life and the womb. But for some of us, faith is an additional incentive to protect the least of these. As Pope Francis has said, the right to life is the first among human rights. You don't exactly need a doctorate in philosophy to figure that one out. Of all the rights that you have, what is the most important right that you have? To vote Democrat? No. Health care is a right, not a privilege. No. It's the right to life. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The right to life is the first among human rights. This truth is central to Catholic teaching throughout time. Psalm 139, 13, 14 notes, "For you created by my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Faith does not intrude into politics on abortion. Instead, political operatives forced into the law and public policy an irreverent rejection of the value of preborn life. So it's not politics sticking its nose in religion. It's not religion sticking its nose in politics. It's politics sticking its nose, or perhaps its scalpel, into religion. Rather than helping pregnant women, abortion proponents attempt to eliminate the child, a potential sufferer, rather than the woman's suffering. But the day after her abortion, a mother still needs economic opportunity, equal protection under the law, access to education and empowerment. The act of abortion ends the life of her child and offers nothing in return. In this election, stark contrasts also exist between candidates on issues like codifying Roe. In other words, having Congress enact a federal statute that says no state shall outlaw abortion. Now, that would be of questionable constitutionality, but not questionable morality as far as the Democrats are concerned. In this election, stark contrast also exists between candidates on issues like codifying Roe, a term of art that means creating a federal law to allow for abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, sometimes with taxpayer funding. Getting rid of the Hyde Amendment, former Vice President Joe Biden's position, means support for taxpayer funding of abortion. Eliminating the Mexico City policy means taxpayer funding of abortion, American taxpayer funding of abortion worldwide. The tragic passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a clear reminder of the ever-present issue of judicial appointments as a reason to vote for those who want to see life protected in law. And I somehow have a hard time using the word tragic death in the same sentence as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In hearings of multiple recent judicial nominees, senators, including the Democrats' vice presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, attacked candidates like Judge Amy Coney Barrett, who was on President Donald Trump's shortlist for Supreme Court. This was obviously written before Amy was nominated, for actually believing the tenets of their church. Horror of horrors. Harris has a troubling record. While Attorney General of California, Harris arranged an armed raid on the home of pro-life journalist and activist David DeLayden, who had dared to document Planned Parenthood employees' engagement in exchanging money for aborted infant body parts. And she did this after advocating for Planned Parenthood as a part of her Senate campaign. This David DeLayden thing is a real horror story. He and another person were able to masquerade as agents for companies who would buy the parts of aborted babies for medicinal purposes. And it was really bad. You know, the Planned Parenthood people said, well, you know, the way we do it is we do it this way. That way we're able to save the head, etc., making the goods more sellable. You know, and all of those Black Lives Matters that get so fired up about slavery. This makes slavery look like a garden party. To abort babies in the womb in such a manner that the parts of the aborted baby are more saleable and more profitable to Planned Parenthood. And this guy wound up criminal prosecution, civil prosecution, etc., all mostly at the hands of Kamala Harris. Last year, Harris introduced the Do No Harm Act in the U.S. Senate, which would water down the federal 1993 Religious Freedom Restoration Act, among other laws designed to protect people of faith. In effect, that change would empower government authorities to force people of faith to comply with laws they find morally objectionable, such as pay for or perform abortions in public health care if they receive some state or federal funding. This is not a small threat, as twice the nuns of the Little Sisters of the Poor have been forced to go to the Supreme Court because they did not want to pay for birth control and abortions, or provide insurance coverage for contraceptives. A common canard thrown down at pro-life people is the falsehood that we don't care about the baby until after she is born. The track record of our movement tells the opposite story. A pregnant immigrant at the border and a pregnant woman in America holds the same powerful potential for greatness. As Catholics, we need to evaluate candidates for their track records on human rights issues of our day, abortion, and their ability to respect the beliefs of their fellow Americans who should be free to act as their consciences dictate. For Catholics who say they will not vote for President Trump, I challenge you to put aside personalities to focus both on the human rights issue of our day and the anti-Catholic bigotry on clear display in the other presidential ticket. The choice here is not between good and great, but reliable to date and disastrous. And I would say the choice is between good and evil. Well, I said this is not a local story, but it does lead nicely into a local story. And that is that a local group of pro-lifers have put out a survey to all of the candidates and challengers for the legislature. And they did a press release early this morning and sent it out to all items of the press. It hasn't appeared in the papers or on TV yet, but I expect it will. But I got one as a member of the press, of the Fourth Estate, as it were. So the ground rules were that the question asked was, do you support legal abortion? Yes or no? Those are the only two choices. Do you support legal abortion? And it's a yes or no answer. Starting out with John Albert Ananich. No response, which means yes, he supports abortion. And if you want to argue about it, if you don't care enough to circle the no on that survey, then you don't care very much. Fred Berdalio, no response. Christopher Carrillo, no response. David Duenas, no response. Frank Leon Guerrero, no, he does not support abortion. So there's one over there in the Democrat side. Kelly G. Marsh Titano, no response. No surprise either. And then we've got Franklin Mano. He says no. Okay, that's the second no. Tina Rose Munya Barnes. She says yes. Comment. She wants to make some comments. Anybody that comes up to me, if we have one of those surveys, which we probably can't because of the virus, but I went to the survey last time and I said, are you in favor of abortion? Are you against abortion? And this is the answer I got from a couple. Bob, I'm absolutely against abortion. I just think it's the worst possible thing. But, I just don't think it's my place to tell a woman what to do with her body. If I were ever in that situation again, I give you fair warning. I'm going to slap your face. All right. Yeah, I better not be so violent, right?
Well, we'll follow up with this.
I knew the real Joe Cruz would go along with me on that one.
He concurs.
Yeah. So Tina Rose Munya Barnes, yeah, she's in favor of abortion, but with comments. Talina Nelson, no response. Sabina Eileen Paris, no response. Clinton E. Rigel, no response. Joe Shimizu San Augustine, no, he's against abortion. Amanda Shelton, no response. Jose Tovis Terlahi, no, he's against abortion. Therese M. Terlahi, yes. Comments only, no. You're for it or you're against it. You can have 14 pages of comments and it doesn't change much. So on the Democrat side, we've got Frank Guerrero. We've got
Mano.
Franklin Mano, Joe San Augustine, and Jose Terlahi. That's 4.
There's 2 interesting names there that Dave gave a no response that I'm interested in.
Okay.
Talina Nelson.
Uh-huh.
Because I believe she has supported pro-life legislation before.
Okay.
And the other one, I'll get back to you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there is this political dimension. I'm really against abortion, and I don't favor it in any circumstance. And if we ever had a bill and it came to a vote, I'd pass 2 times, and if I could vote for the bill, I'd do it. There's that phenomenon. I'm really anti-abortion, but I think it would be bad for me politically. So I talk in terms of life and choice and reproductive rights, and I avoid the question as much as I can. But at least 4 Democrats here. For me, that's a go, no-go. So there are 4 that survive this survey on the Democrat side. Over on the Republican side, we have Vicente Anthony Tony Ada, no. Michelle Armenta, no. Frank Flores Blas, no. Vince Bora, no. Joanne Brown, no. Joseph Iglesias Cruz, J.I. Cruz, no. Chris Duenas, no response. Oh, that's a surprise because he's been on this program talking about being anti. Yeah, that's a real surprise. And Don Ed Kalani, no. Dominic Joaquin Hernandez, no response. I wonder who Dominic Joaquin Hernandez is. I've never even heard that name before. And then we have Joaquin V. Leon Guerrero. I wonder who he is. Never heard his name before, but he's no response. And then we've got James Moylan, no. Sandra Seo, no. Tello, no. And bringing up the rear, Mary Camacho Torres, no response.
Joaquin Leon Guerrero, you know who that is.
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, why doesn't he come out and say so? No response? Ken Leon Guerrero, no response? Wow, because, you know, the way that the ground rules for this are you don't respond, you're pro-abortion.
When was that sent out? That's a good question, too. How much time did they have to respond?
I think they had 4 or 5 days.
Oh, that's ample time.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like when the roll is called.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have to sit there and scratch your head and figure, gee, do I want to vote?
I can't see anybody on the fence on this issue.
No.
Yeah.
No. And I can't see that this is a surprise. Oh, I didn't think anybody would ask this going into the election. Yeah. So Ken Leon Guerrero is a surprise. Mary Torres is not a surprise after her performances with passing, etc. So we've got we've got 4 Republicans who are apparently pro-abortion. A couple of them are big disappointments. Ken Leon Guerrero and Chris Duenas. Mary Torres, no surprise. Dominic Hernandez, Mox Nix. Okay, so that's why I went with this editorial from Saturday. I thought it would be a good lead-in to this survey that the pro-life group has done, which I will be coming back to between now and the election, and I promise that I will go through and comment on each of the candidates. And as I mentioned here today, if you're pro-abortion, that's a no-go as far as I'm concerned. Okay, let's see what another Joe has to say. Oh, break time? How come all my lights lit up? Did I push the wrong button?
I think you might have dropped everybody.
Cool.
We'll put it back on.
All right, good.
Yeah. So another Joe, call back and we can go to a break.
Okay.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Did you know your smartphone is one of the most powerful tools in our fight against COVID-19? That's why we're bringing you the Guam COVID Alert Exposure Notification app. Developed by Google, Apple, and the PathCheck Foundation, the app works by letting you know if you've been exposed to someone who's positive. It's completely voluntary, and more importantly, it's anonymous. Add your phone to the COVID fight. Go to guamcovidalert.guam.gov or download it from the App Store or Google Play now. Help Guam stop COVID-19.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Well, here we are, back again on Tall Tales, and unfortunately, when I reached for the telephone console a few minutes ago, I dumped another Joe, but another Joe is called back. but during the period of the dump, Senator Chris Duenas called in. So I'm going to handle Senator Chris Duenas, obviously something to talk with Senator Chris about, and then I'll get back to another Joe. So good afternoon, Chris.
Half a day, Senator Bob, Your Honor. Honorable Marine, my favorite talk show host. I deeply apologize, and I will contact Maria right away. I know that Saturday, first of all, Maria Espinosa contacted me as one of the first people. I told her I'm an absolute no. And I got the survey. They saw us on Saturday, some of the group up there when we were waving at GW. I thought I had gotten that in via my email, and it didn't go through. I missed the deadline, but I am an absolute no, and I will have that to them first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, I'm afraid, Chris, you have some record clearing to do here, too, you know, because people will see that survey, and people heard about it on Tall Tales today, so you might have to be a little proactive here and make it clear that you are anti-abortion, you know what I mean?
I am anti-abortion. I have always been. As a matter of fact, I've answered, and I was kind of joking around with Maria. Ever since the Esperanza group had formed, all going all the way back to when they were serving senators, I have been anti-abortion. I am still anti-abortion. And I also have filled that out on every one of their surveys. Their records should show that. I also have always filled out those surveys as far as the Catholic Church and the non-negotiables. So that has been my record all the way through, and I will make it up to them and get that to them properly.
Okay, Chris. Well, I'm really glad I just was shocked when I saw that item in the survey. So I'm glad you called Tall Tales and cleared the record here. So good luck with that.
Absolutely. And I understand deadlines, and I apologize for having missed it. I hope they would do an update, but it's up to them. But it will be on the record when I get it to them.
Okay, very good. Good luck, Chris. Okay, I've got some comments here about, I think, what I was just talking about. Let's see. Len McAfee says, okay, I'm going to make a statement here that is meant to make a point. Don't burn me at the stake. When you debate someone on abortion or hear somebody go off the rails and get incensed because somebody threw a dog in the river, and that's the end of her post, unless it's picked up somewhere else. Cynthia Mesa, forced sterilizations without consent, even removing the uterus, are performed on migrant camps by this Trump. I don't think so, Cynthia. Nice.
Maybe talking about 1940s Austrian camps.
Yeah, nice try though. John Bouchard, got this from a retired combat aviator and senior airline pilot. It's outstanding and so very true. Let's see. I guess it's a different subject. I'll have to read that later. Okay, well, with no further ado, I will check in with another Joe who's on line 2, and I got a call coming in on line 1. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Hey, Uncle Bob. I have to say it's a really intimidating issue. Is it possible you can get Father Romy on your show sometime soon, and he can clarify what it means to be Catholic and be pro-life? Because I asked him about it. He said, I think the stance of the Catholic Church is to save both the lives of the mother and the child, and that if there's no way of saving the child's life, then to save the life of the mother. That's my understanding of the way he explained it, which I'm a little bit confused about, because then that's not really abortion. It's because let's say the child's already going to pass and they're going to save the child. That's not really an abortion. So I'm not sure of the context, but that's what I was going to ask. Is it possible? Do you think Father Romeo would be willing to come in your program and clarify that?
Do you think I'd like to have him?
Yeah.
How often do you see guests come in on Tall Tales, Another Joe?
Oh no. I meant, well, at least like a phone call.
Yeah. So what is your question exactly? I got lost in the terms of your question.
I was trying to figure out, does it suggest the Catholic Church has there's some nuance that we don't know about, and that it's somewhere between being an abortion and not being an abortion, which I doubt. I think it's always about saving the life of anyone and everyone. So
the Catholic, one of the fundamentals of the Catholic religion is that you protect the most vulnerable.
Agreed.
So that kind of takes you through just about any dilemma, doesn't it?
I hope so. And for a minute, I wanted to call you Father. Okay, Uncle Bob, I'll just keep listening. But yeah, I think maybe if we feel like maybe more relieved if we heard more from maybe our priests.
Well, you said there are some things that we don't know about. Well, if we don't know about it, how do I frame the question? This sounds like we're back to Dunning-Kruger again, where the one requirement of the Dunning-Kruger society is that you don't know that you're a member.
Oh no, I feel that way exactly, Uncle Bob, especially in regards to this particular issue, the pro-abortion, pro-choice versus the anti-abortion, pro-life. I totally feel this way because I don't understand completely the emotional involvement of the women, but I know it's real because they have this raw emotion, feeling about it. I can't imagine because I'm a man, but at the same time, I feel as though men should be included in the dialogue and not excluded, especially if they are the biological father and or relatives.
Well, you avoid the whole dilemma if you just say no abortion. You don't need any involvement from the father there at all if you don't condone abortion.
I think there's a lot of fear involved, Bob, a lot of fear to disappoint or anger women, especially, not so much a fear of angering the militant feminists, but definitely fear of conflict, unnecessary conflict. But in this issue, Uncle Bob, how can you avoid it? You know what I'm saying?
Why would you want to?
Well, as a younger man, you tend not to get involved in a lot of stuff, in general, in theory. Younger men.
Hey, you know what? Another Joe, I know you're going to have a hard time believing this, but once upon a time, I was a young man.
Oh, wow.
That sounds like you better beep the horn there, Jose. Bob was a young man.
Okay, Uncle Bob.
Okay, Another Joe.
I'll just keep listening. Thanks for your time, Bob.
Good talking to you. Yeah, the name of the program is Tall Tales, after all, isn't it?
I like to say, as a former fetus, I always have a say.
Right. Yeah, and I think I get the idea what Another Joe's heading for, but the left, the far left, has so gaslighted people into moving away from natural law. Natural law means that you need a man and a woman to propagate the race. And you do this with something called sexual intercourse, the natural product of which is children. And if you don't have children, your race will expire. It'll be extinct. And the left has gaslighted people so much on all of natural law that they would try to convince you that there's something called a woman's right to do with what she wants with her own body that supersedes natural law. Anyhow, I've got Michelle Armenta on the phone. I have a feeling that I know where she is on this issue. Good afternoon, Michelle.
Good afternoon, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
So there have been, now I ended up missing some of your conversation because I just happened to be getting swabbed because I don't know if you realize or not, but I'm in quarantine right now. So hopefully I'll be out soon. But the portions that I did happen to catch, your last caller about being a young man and not wanting to basically start unnecessary conflicts, and you're absolutely right about the left. They have really they're very vocal, even if they are the minority in any topic. They're so vocal that a lot of people don't want to say anything. And so, and you don't want to create this conflict. And with what our young man was saying, that as a young man, you don't want any of that conflict, so you stay out of it. But there was also a time in history when young men were the strongest, and they are the ones that are supposed to be out there protecting us. So, I think young men need to reevaluate their position in life. So, that being said, I think that I'm part of the Catholic Pro-Life Committee, and I am, of course, pro-life. And I think that this survey is really telling about a lot of things. And I'm really glad that Chris called in because I think sometimes, too, when we get all these surveys, things can be missed. But that's not an excuse. And I really think that a lot of people tend to shy away from this question, and some people just don't even want to say anything. And a lot of people are also talking because as a voter, people kept talking to me saying, oh, well, I'm not a one-issue voter. I'm not a one-issue voter. Well, you know what? We can start with who's pro-life. Start with that issue. And I think a lot of times that will set into place everything else that you believe. Because now you're protecting other people. You're not just thinking about yourself. So that's how I see it. So I think that if a person is not willing to answer a simple yes or no question, I think that in itself is very telling about the person, that they are, I guess. And the silly thing is because I know that there are people out there on that list that are pro-life. So, I really wish that they would just answer yes or no. I think that would be very helpful.
I agree, Michelle, and I agree with everything that you say. And one who would avoid this question and not make his views known, if he's any kind of candidate for any kind of an office, if nothing else, is apparently so indecisive that he ought to spend his time watching TV and knitting socks or something like that, because that's not the kind of people we want in public life.
That's very true. Very true.
Well, good luck with your quarantine, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much.
And glad you called in today. You're a voice of reason in a sea of unreasonableness.
Okay. Oh, did you happen to catch that story about the woman who basically woke up and she found out that basically her baby was taken out?
The woman, you mean the woman in the hospital whose baby?
Yes, the woman in the hospital. Yeah, I just somebody sent that in one of my chats, and it wasn't in the Post, it wasn't in the PDN, it was in another paper.
It's now in the Post.
It's now in the Post?
Yes. It is in the Post, yeah.
Yeah,
did you want to comment on that, Michelle?
Well, I was just thinking, is there a way that we can privatize this hospital and maybe make it a Catholic hospital, a nonprofit?
Well, what we're looking for is a senator who will be bold enough to come along and say that I, if elected, will work on legislation to sell our hospital or to lease it or something, so that we have competent management and a decent facility for the management to operate out of. That's all it takes, Michelle.
Is that all it takes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, let's get it done then.
Can we count on you to take that initiative?
You can absolutely count on me to take that initiative. So now I need to do a bunch of research on how to get this done.
Okay, well, we've got one candidate then is that we're going to count as the real pro-healthcare candidate. The rest mumble the words and really don't put any meaning behind it.
Okay, well, I hope I have everybody's support, and I guess we'll talk to you guys soon. So hopefully, I'll be out there, protesting with the pro-life and getting out there, and then people can actually see that I'm actually out there because I haven't been around for a while. So I'm a little bit locked up right now. So please, So please keep me in your prayers, and hopefully I'll get out of here soon.
Okay, best of luck to you, Michelle. Okay, we're going to take a short break here, heading up to the big halftime show. I've got Bruce Williams on the line and our Carl on the line, the most dangerous man in the room.
As the island takes a stand against the coronavirus, so do the professionals at Horizon Properties. As a property owner and with the current health scare the island is facing, the last thing you should worry about is collecting rental payments or sending out a repairman to your property. Let Horizon Properties take care of that for you as you remain safe at home. Call Horizon Properties at 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at www.horizonproperties.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
We all need to fight COVID-19, and we need all the weapons we can get to beat it. Your smartphone can be one of the most powerful tools to battle this pandemic. The Guam COVID Alert Exposure Notification app can let you know if you've been exposed to someone who has the virus. Add your phone to the COVID fight by going to guamcovidalert.guam.gov or download it from the App Store or Google Play now. Help Guam stop COVID-19.
Okay, so here we are back again, and let's see, I've got a couple callers on the line. I've got Bruce Williams in the green room, and then the most dangerous man in the room. So you got a hard spot here, Bruce, because you've got the most dangerous man in the room coming right after you.
No problem, Bob. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this abortion issue and the young man who made the comment of not wanting to get involved. Yeah, I've been there, done that. My mother she ran the pro-life movement in Hawaii for all the islands for 15 plus years. And during that time, I supported her, but no, as he said, I really didn't get involved. But this is a defining moment in our country because the amount of children that have been slaughtered for the sake of convenience, it has nothing to do with choice. It has to do with convenience. The amount of children that have been slaughtered, there's going to be a reckoning. God's cup is overflowing. His mercy has reached its limit because you just can't keep murdering the innocent without any consequences. And for all the liberals out there, they have nothing but hate. That hate is born of abortion. That's it.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head, Bruce.
Okay, adios.
Always good to talk to you. Thanks for calling, Bruce. Okay, then I bring in the cleanup hitter here, the most dangerous man in the room. Get the crowd warmed up for that big halftime show that they've been looking forward to. So here he is, the most dangerous man in the room, our Carl. What can you tell us about abortion, our Carl?
Hey, Bob, I just wanted to comment about Ms. Armenta. She's one of the few candidates that I'm considering voting for, and her stock just went up listening to her. I have looked at her record, and she shows some indication of being someone who is motivated to get things done. And I just like what she says. You know, she doesn't hem and haw. She just comes out and says her opinion, and if you don't like it, well, you know, that's your problem.
You'd think she was auditioning for the job of host of Tall Tales, Carl, with a delivery like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing as what we see, you know, in the White House today. I think a lot of people, of course not everyone, but a lot of people like President Trump because he's a native New Yorker. He's never had a boss other than his dad, and he's just used to saying what's on his mind, and you know, and it's refreshing. You know, you get tired of politicians just sticking their index finger in their mouth and then sticking their index finger up in the air and trying to find out which way the wind is blowing.
You know, even Governor Leon Guerrero stuck up for President Trump here about a week or so ago. She said that none of us are perfect. Go on, Carl.
I mean, he's got his. He's not a perfect human being. He's got his issues just like everyone, but he's the right man for the times. You know, we're facing many challenges with China, with the economy, with this virus. I mean, just challenge after challenge.
Chris Wallace.
I've seen his list of accomplishments despite this 24/7, 365 resistance movement, and it's a super long list of accomplishments, you know. So he's just keeps plowing on, and it's really good to see. Anyway, I just wanted to chime in that you know, Michelle kind of solidified her position on my very, very, very short vote list at this moment, and that may change. You know, there's still time. I really haven't decided to support a single incumbent senator. I'm so disappointed with the lack of any progress on the hospital, on, you know, our decaying schools and our decaying prison. The big, big, big issues. You don't expect magic, but, you know, you don't expect to have them shoved to the background and just ignored, and then be off chasing these, you know, resolutions and things that are really very low impact. It's very disappointing.
Double pay for government workers and all of these really important issues, right?
Yes, exactly. And I'm sticking to my plan, which is I look at people's, I don't care about their promises, I don't care about their nice smile and their handshake and all this other stuff, you know, or if they've got a degree. I look at what have they done. That's the only way I can think of to judge a person's potential is what have they done. Promises are cheap. You know, I can give all kinds of promises and they don't mean anything. But when you look back at a person's record, then you start to see, well, this guy isn't all talk. You know, he's walked the walk.
Are we back to Ray Topaznia again?
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, I'm sticking to that filter for candidates, and that's why my list is pretty short. Ken is still on the list, but I, like you, was a little surprised about his lack of response about the abortion thing. I just would like to, the entertainment value of having Ken there rocking the boat would be worth the price of admission in my view. But I'd like to hear what his explanation is on why, maybe it's the same as you know, former Senator Duenas.
Maybe.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear. Anyway, I just want to chime in, support for Michelle Armenta, and people like that we need to get in, and who are committed to change, committed to improvement, and aren't just all talk. They have a record of doing things, and they're, anyway, I support her. Thanks a lot, Bob. I appreciate it.
Okay, you can go back to your secret mission, Carl. Thanks for calling.
I will.
Okay, so the most dangerous man in the room, also known as our Carl, chimes in, and sounds like Michelle has picked up one vote here, if she didn't pick up any others, by coming here on Tall Tales. Okay, I've got about 4 minutes before the big halftime show, and then I'm going to go to the Post portion of the editorial. And I'm going to deviate from the routine when I get there, but I don't want to start something and not be able to finish it before the break. So I think I'll just cruise through the Facebook comments here, see what I've got. I've got Mark Anthony expressing the polite greetings, and Pam Duvall, and Rico Blancafleur, and Lynn McAfee. Good afternoon, tailgaters. Happy Monday. Thank you, Mr. Bob and Joe. Joe, have you been told you're appreciated today? Let me read that again and see if you can find the right sound effect for that one, Jose.
Good.
Good afternoon, Tall Gators. Happy Monday. Thank you, Mr. Bob. And Joe, have you been told how you're appreciated today? Yeah, the real Joe Cruz got a kick out of that one, didn't he? All right, real Joe Cruz. We've got the real Joe Cruz in a box here in the control room, and we let him out just when we need someone to laugh at my corny jokes. Okay, so let's see. I've got Mark Cruz, Jess Kanata, and Lynn McAfee. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know where it happened with my post, but my point was you find a bag of kittens on the side of the road in a trash bag, or a dog thrown in the river, and everybody gets upset and starts hollering. Where's the people hollering about aborting a baby? Why does the aborted human baby have fewer rights and a lower status than a trash bag of kittens on the side of the road? That's a good point. Everybody feels bad about that dog that they found with a rope around his neck, right? Or what was that, Pugwa, the dog? Oh, everybody really got fired up about that, a $5,000 reward, etc. And here we killed, up until the beginning of the Leon Guerrero administration, we were killing a couple hundred babies every year. And then when we stopped, when we went for a whole 6 months without killing any babies, this was such an emergency that the governor told Jane Flores, see if you could lure an abortionist into coming to the island. We can't go on like this. This kind of ties back into what Michelle said about who cares for what? Who cares for whom? And if your makeup is such that you can't care for an unborn child inside of a woman's body, how well equipped are you to care for other people? Okay, let's break for that big halftime show we've all been waiting.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Under observation. I'm Mary Corsetti, Fox News. After testing positive for COVID-19, but he could be out of the hospital as early as today. According to the president's doctors, he could return to the White House Monday if his condition keeps improving.
The president's medical team expressing optimism about his treatment over the course of this weekend. Here's the timeline of events as we understand them. The president receiving a second dose of the drug remdesivir Saturday evening. The president did have an episode where his oxygen level dropped to around 93%. In response to low oxygen levels, the president has received his first dose of dexamethasone. The plan is to continue dexamethasone for the time being. That is a steroid designed to help a patient's breathing.
Fox's Mike Emanuel. Also new tonight, California Republican Representative Devin Nunes accusing former FBI Director James Comey of stonewalling members of Congress, looking into how the long-running Russia collusion investigation began.
On certain days, James Comey has an intelligence level higher than Einstein. He seems to know everything
everything. He takes immaculate notes. He even takes those classified notes home and shares them with a lawyer. Somehow those notes end up in the New York Times. But then other times, like you would think when you've actually opened an investigation into the Trump campaign in Russia, he seems to have amnesia. He's forgotten everything.
Nunes spoke to Fox's Sunday Morning Futures, calling for U.S. intelligence agencies to release more information on the investigation of the 2016 Trump campaign. Plus, an appeals court has refused to allow the Trump administration to continue detaining immigrant children in hotel rooms before expelling them under rules adopted during the coronavirus pandemic. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Sunday upheld a lower court's order that would have required the U.S. to stop using hotels. Border agencies since March have held more than 600 children in hotel rooms before expelling them from the country. America is listening to Fox News.
As the island takes a stand against the coronavirus, so do the professionals at Horizon Properties. As a property owner and with the current health scare the island is facing, the last thing you should worry about is collecting rental payments or sending out a repairman to your property. Let Horizon Properties take care of that for you as you remain safe at home. Call Horizon Properties at 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at www.horizonproperties.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Will there soon be more testing for members of Congress on Capitol Hill? Some members say it's time to consider it.
In light of the president and several senators testing positive, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and others say it's time to have testing and tracing for all who work on Capitol Hill. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on CBS Face the Nation says she won't make a blanket decision.
My confidence in this, respectful of those views, is with the House attending physician who will determine when it is necessary.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has agreed with Pelosi that if there is Capitol Hill testing, it should not be for just members of Congress.
Fox's Grenal Scott. There are over 200,000 COVID-related deaths in the U.S., and cases continue to spike across the country.
The United States reporting more than 50,000 cases on each of the last 2 days. The Midwest is in part fueling that uptick in cases. North Dakota continuing to lead the nation with the most cases per capita for the 4th week in a row. Over in Wisconsin, positive cases have more than quadrupled in the last month as infected patients overwhelm hospitals. And New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio says the city is moving to shut down a number of neighborhoods in response to growing outbreaks. The city says it will impose lockdowns in 9 neighborhoods between Brooklyn and Queens that have positive coronavirus test rates of more than 3% for a week or more.
Fox's Charles Watson. Also new tonight, 1 person is dead and 2 others are seriously hurt after a seaplane crashed into a pier in New York City Sunday.
The pilot is a local resident here, known to many of the folks around here. He flies in and out of here, I would say, often, and the plane is usually kept here.
That's the New York City Fire Department commissioner. A person riding a jet ski is credited with pulling 2 people from the wreckage. I'm Mary Corsetti, and this is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Did you know your smartphone is one of the most powerful tools in our fight against COVID-19? That's why we're bringing you the Guam COVID Alert Exposure Notification app. Developed by Google, Apple, and the PathCheck Foundation, the app works by letting you know if you've been exposed to someone who's positive. It's completely voluntary, and more importantly, it's anonymous. Add your phone to the COVID fight. Go to guamcovidalert.guam.gov or download it from the App Store or Google Play now. Help Guam stop COVID-19.
Pick up dinner for you and the family at Chili's. We got you covered with a variety of delicious family platter options, like our fajita trio, Cajun chicken pasta, or our crispy chicken crispers. Or order off our new menu for you and a friend and indulge in our tasty burgers, tacos, and ribs. Get your Chili's favorites in a way that works for you. Call 648-7377 or WhatsApp 929-7376 for curbside pickup orders. Or get delivery with Good to Go. Chili's, you can still savor the moments at home.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are, the big halftime show here on Tall Tales that we've all come to know and love. That means we are now in the second and final half of Tall Tales for today. And I'm still working on finishing up Zemi Ikotny. It's been a long Zemi Ikotny today. So the Daily News had a kind of a double aspect, and so does the Post. So the Post has an editorial, Impasse on Pandemic Relief Worrisome for Guam. And wait a minute, that isn't the right one. Is it? Did I get my papers mixed up here? I think so. Today's Post is about aid for child care establishments. Oh, here it is. I have it. As you were, I have it. Yeah, 5 months delay in releasing federal aid to child care centers must be resolved. So it's kind of a story that we're familiar with. There's about $6.5 million from the feds to aid child care establishments. It's been 5 months and the money still hasn't been released. And the Post says, the survival of child care centers is an integral part of our workers' ability to get back to work with the peace of mind that their children are in capable hands while they are at work. Child care centers' ability to survive this pandemic is a necessity for our economy to move forward toward a path to recovery. Public health must do what is necessary and ensure this does not drag on any longer. So, okay, it's a fair editorial, not a barn burner, not a blue star. It calls the, unfortunately, public health to account. The director of the Department of, as you were, the director of Public Health and Social Services is a gentleman named Art San Augustine over there at the Daily Post. He is the one that you want to call to an account. You can't call a department. You can't hold a department accountable. A department of the government of Guam is not even a legal person. It cannot sue or be sued. It has no physical reality whatsoever. It can't be held responsible for anything. The director of a department, however, can, as witness Tom Peinhoff's suit against the governor and director of Public Health and Social Services. Okay, so rather than dwell on the Daily News, as you were in the Post editorial today, I went to something else on the Post editorial page that really struck my fancy. And if it were on the card, it would be billed as Weber versus bois. And I'm going to ask Jose to tell us all what bois means.
That would be the Bureau of Women's Affairs.
Bureau of Women's Affairs. And the title on this column, Weber writes a column every Monday for the Post, and the title is, Are Some Lives Worth More Than Others? Last week, this column covered what I believe to be a rational and thoughtful approach to questioning why this administration spent such a significant amount of time publicly noting only Wuhan virus-related deaths when compared to the 900 plus annual deaths, that's about 75 per month, that have occurred during the past 2 years on Guam. That mortality trend has continued to slowly grow for years now, according to microtrends. One of the governor's staff took offense to my simple explanation of the real numbers and related questions and twisted it into something she felt was shameful for me to discuss. I won't tell you what the name of this governor's staff is. I will give you a hint, though. Her initials are Jane Flores. She twisted Weber's column into something she felt was shameful for him to discuss. And she wrapped up her column by saying, "Tai mamatloli," yeah, shameless. She then drew comparisons with my rational explanation of numbers and twisted it into something it wasn't. In her letter to the editor of this newspaper, she used her pregnant daughter, a working nurse who contracted the virus, and her yet-to-be-born child as an example of the fact that healthy people can also contract this awful virus, a point which, of course, nobody disputed. As a compassionate human being, knowing that her daughter and grandchild are well is excellent news to me, and I very sincerely thank her daughter for her apparent frontline work which she has done and continues to do as a nurse in our community. The irony of the letter writer's message, at least to me, is, if I'm not mistaken, she is the same person that was hired by the governor to find an abortionist. That is, someone who kills unborn children, who is willing to come and work on Guam. Something that I personally find repugnant and shameful, save in very exceptional circumstances. Yeah, so I guess the Tai Mamatlo goes back to Jane Flores on this one. But more to the real subject of this column. Recently, the governor decided to give $10,000 to the family of any person who dies on Guam while infected with Wuhan virus. If I'm listening correctly to the experts around the globe who are addressing this terrible virus, we are very likely facing years of people contracting and possibly dying from the virus, or more likely because of complications because of comorbidities associated with their contraction of the virus. Once again, as I mentioned last week, I have lost my mother, father, 2 brothers, and a 7-year-old son. Well, none of them died from anything associated with this nasty virus. It was just as painful for me and my living family as it would have been had they died from some form of Wuhan virus-related illness. So once again, the question of why is the family of someone who dies from Wuhan virus-related illness to receive $10,000 when clearly the vast majority of families on the island who have family members who die naturally do not? This line of questioning is not to begrudge those families who receive this money from getting it, but rather to ask, why is there such a disparity between them and the clearly vast majority of natural deaths that occur on Guam each and every year? Are these other lives and families somehow worth less? Do their families somehow not feel the same amount of pain and loss as those who die from Wuhan virus-related disease? The community deserves to know, and once again, only the governor can tell us. Okay, well, since this was kind of the substitute editorial, I think it's only appropriate. Little drum roll, please, Jose.
It's lost.
Uh-huh.
We have it. We have it. We have it.
So the coveted blue star goes to Lee Weber. And the anti-blue star goes to Jane Flores. Okay, that wraps up Zemi Ikotny for today. And here we are, 45 minutes left in the show, and I'm finally getting to the card. And this is what I've got on the card. I've got the GOP, Grand Old Party, versus the Progressive Democrat Group. Wow. I've got Chris Duenas versus the 35th Guam Legislature. Dr. Mike Cruz versus the governor. And Trump versus Dobongan. And you will see that when I get to Trump versus Dobongan, that the Guam Daily Post needs to have a mechanism to insert beep beep in its news stories. All right, so let's start out with the GOP versus the Pacific, as you were, the Progressive, Progressive Democrat Group? Yeah. There was a release on this progressive political group on October 1st by Jerry Partido, a new political group calling itself the Progressive Democrats of Guam, has been formed and is sending out a 6-question survey to candidates for the 36th legislature. Pacific, as you were, progressive, I can't even remember the name, you guys, Progressive Democrats of Guam, bills itself as a grassroots organization promoting progressive values, policies, and candidates in Guam. Says their survey seeks to better inform Guam voters by asking candidates to clarify their stances on issues of vital social and economic importance. And I have the survey. If you go to their website, you can find the survey. And here's the first question on the survey. 1, unemployment insurance. All 50 states plus Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands have unemployment insurance programs providing partial rate wage replacement to those unemployed through no fault of their own. This is important. This is like hard workers, hardworking employees, right? Through no fault of their own. At an average cost to employers of 0.47% of total payroll. Unemployment programs can borrow from the U.S. In other words, it lays out the unemployment insurance that is available in all of the 50 states, and wants to know if, Mr. Candidate, if you are elected, will you do this for Guam? Well, as far as the progressive Democrats who are in the legislature right now, what was holding them back? You know, they've got a majority. They've got a Democrat governor. I think they would all tell you that they are progressive Democrats. They're not conservative Democrats. So if this were such a good idea, how come we're still talking about it now? Number 2, no layoffs for Gov Guam workers. Cutting the business privilege tax by 1%, and that's what the Action PAC wants to do, would result in $61 million in lost revenue, $61 million in lost revenue, requiring layoffs of 600 to 1,200 Guam workers. It's just automatic. If the GRT goes back to 4%, then 600 to 1,200 workers would have to be taken off the payroll. Does that mean that we've hired 600 to 1,200 more since it went to 5%? Logically, that's the only way it could be. And then the question, will you vote to cut BPT by 1%, causing massive layoffs? That's what we call begging the question. Begging the question doesn't mean what a lot of people think it means. It doesn't mean promoting the asking of a question. Here's a classic case of begging a question. Are you still beating your wife? In other words, in order to answer the question, you have to presume the truth of a key element of the question without any proofs. And of course, if the question, are you still beating your wife, there's no right answer. No. Well, that's good. When did you quit? Well, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say yes. Oh, you're still beating your wife, huh? So that's what they're doing here. Will you vote to cut BPT by 1%, causing massive layoffs of government of Guam workers? 3, fair compensation for essential workers. Essential workers must show up to work no matter what the circumstances, even during a pandemic or natural disaster. This puts them and their families at grave risk without additional compensation. Will you vote to raise the minimum wage for essential workers to no less than $10 per hour? I think the minimum wage goes to $9.50 in January. So this is really a nice gesture here. So in other words, if you're working for Payless and you're a minimum wage employee, when the governor declares a state of emergency, your salary has to go to $10. That's what they're saying. PPE during the current pandemic, many workers are required to provide their own personal protective equipment for work. Will you vote to require employers to provide PPE for their workers? Yeah, it's kind of a nothing question. 5, health care for all. Governor Lulian Guerrero has proposed moving toward universal health care coverage through a system of public self-insurance, which provides coverage through existing networks and offers comprehensive health services. That's as much as I know about it. I haven't seen word one of Governor Lulian Guerrero's proposed universal health care coverage. And then the question is, do you support moving towards universal health care coverage in the framework offered by the governor? Well, just that last phrase pretty much tips my hand. No! Denied.
Oh, Bob, you're killing me here.
Denied. There you go. Yeah. Enhanced environmental enforcement. Of course, they're progressive Democrats, so it doesn't even need explanation that they're environmental wackos. GovGuam has stunningly limited enforcement capacity for controlling many ongoing environmental issues that impact, guess who? Our people. Health, safety, and the island's sustainability. These threats include man-made wildfires, littering, illegal dumping, illegal fishing, poaching, etc. Will you vote to increase funding to relevant GovGuam agencies so they can better enforce environmental laws and manage conservation issues? No, I won't. So there's a thread that runs through here, and that is more government of Guam employees.
It's the throw money at it Democrats of Guam.
Exactly. So you got to wonder who's the prime mover behind this group and why is that the thread? Well, the prime mover behind the group, if you go to their website, is a gentleman named Julian Jansen, who is making $52,000 per year plus a bucket full of government benefits.
Must be nice to be progressive.
Now, guess where he works? He works at BOSAP. He's a special program coordinator at BOSAP, the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. So, I guess there isn't anything in here that would surprise anyone. They call themselves progressive Democrats. They want big government. They want the government to get involved in as many things as possible. And then on Sunday, the Guam, the Republicans, the GOP came out and said, Guam Republicans issue release. Democrats prepared to kill our economy. And here's their comment. Recently, the Progressive Democrats of Guam released a questionnaire for candidates to the legislature. Unlike the Democrat Party of Guam, the Republican Party does not control the actions of our candidates and encourages all senatorial candidates to make their own decisions on whether they would like to participate in this or any other survey being submitted by various organizations. For the PDG, it's unfortunate that at a time when our economy is in complete panic and over 35,000 island residents are out of jobs, that these Democrats are advocating new taxes and costs for small business. Here's a simple business theory for this group of progressives who apparently have never managed a business operation. Isn't BOSAP a business? No, it's not. It's not. Governments around the world are providing incentives to resuscitate dying economies because they want to revive the businesses and not chase them away, or worse, close them down permanently. It is simple. When you create a business-friendly environment, you allow entities to prosper, which means more jobs and a consistent tax base. What these Democrats do not realize is that the great majority of our businesses are small businesses. They are your uncles and aunties, your neighbors and friends, and the great majority are proud contributors of the community. Why do the progressive Democrats of Guam want to shut them down permanently with their outrageous ideas? These Democrats are scaring government Guam employees with a conspiracy theory that reducing the business privilege tax will result in their job losses. What they fail to share is that because the BPT was increased, the government experienced a surplus in fiscal year 2019. They also do not want to tell you that the only things which will be impacted by the BPT will be jobs and contracts for the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration's political supporters. The progressive Democrats of Guam are led by several political hires in the government of Guam. Well, we know one works at BOSAP with ideas which will set our economy back further while increasing our unemployment numbers. The people should take a serious look at which candidates are endorsed by this organization and ask themselves if they should vote for individuals who want to close down more businesses on the island. So that's GOP versus PDG. And I, once again, I have to come out and tell you what I want to see. I want to see an effective, as you were, an efficient, effective government operating within the rule of law that provides basic government services on at least a break-even basis. That's it. Okay, let's break for the seventh inning stretch.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
So here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago. Empty stands, empty field today, but we'll be playing ball with our international radio listening audience of tailgaters. Next item on the card is Chris Duenas versus the 35th Guam Legislature. And this is a story that ran in Saturday's Post. A bill that aims to give the legislature a voice during a public health emergency as one of the three branches of the government has been introduced. And then it says, though not by a member of the legislature. I don't know what they're talking about there. It's a good story, except for that phrase. Former Senator Chris Duenas, who is running for a seat in the 36th Guam legislature, is calling the bill the restoration of separation of powers. Currently, the governor can order a state of public emergency which allows her to take certain actions. The emergency automatically terminates after 30 days unless it's renewed by the governor. Duenas' bill requires the legislature approve a renewal of the emergency. The bill acknowledges that, quote, a certain amount of nimbleness is necessary to deal with the Wuhan virus situation. Legislaturin also finds the extraordinary Chapter 19 powers should not be open-ended and not subject to at least routine legislative oversight, if not concurrence. Therefore, Legislaturin intends that the governor should have to make her case to the legislature if the Chapter 19 powers are to extend beyond 30 days. Duenas said with the legislation in place, the legislature can provide the opportunity for all voices to be heard. The people of Guam deserve a strong co-equal branch of government to ensure equality and true deliberation of policy which affects us all. This proposed bill will do exactly that, Duenas stated. Over the last 6 months of this Wuhan virus pandemic, our private sector has been clamoring for more transparency and a seat at the table when it comes to decision making. The devastating effects of this lockdown has had on our people cannot be overstated. Duenas said he would love it if anyone would introduce it in the current legislature, though he's prepared to do so if elected. As far as I'm concerned, this should be included and passed now. That way, a hearing could be conducted before each extension, and the community could express themselves. And I have a copy of the bill. It's got the obligatory statement of legislative findings, and the operative portion of the bill. You know, if you've ever read bills, the way the bills are constructed, if a bill has an effect on the law as it's currently written, and that law is to be amended, portions of the law that are to be repealed are stricken, and new portions of the law that are to be added are underlined. So this is a really easy to understand law. And this is what it says: nothing, notwithstanding any other provision of this chapter, the declaration of a state of public emergency shall be determined as you are terminated automatically after 30 days unless renewed by the governor. And it strikes out governor and adds legislature. So if this bill became law, it would read like this: notwithstanding any other provisions of this chapter, the declaration of a state of public emergency shall be terminated automatically after 30 days unless the legislature, under the same standards and procedure as you were, unless renewed by the legislature under the same standards and procedures set forth in this article. Any such renewal shall also be terminated automatically after 30 days unless renewed by the legislature. So the way it is right now, in order for anything to happen, a majority of the members of the legislature have to vote to end the governor's magic powers. This bill would reverse the polarity and say that unless a majority of the legislature approves, the emergency ends. So the mechanics are this: the governor declares an state of emergency. It lasts for 30 days, and then she comes out with her executive orders and P-Corps and all the rest of this stuff as a function of that emergency. And right now, we know she doesn't listen to anybody. She doesn't listen to the Physicians Advisory Group. Dr. Nguyen told us that the day before he found the horse at the foot of his bed. And we found out over the weekend that Mike Cruz didn't even know that we're quarantining people that come in from off island. So obviously this is a one-man show up there at the governor's office. And when I say one man, I mean one human. Don't get upset, Governor. It's a one-woman show. And the governor, I have repeatedly pointed out where she has acted in an arbitrary and capricious fashion, best described by my constant references to the Alice in Wonderland character known as the Red Queen, who solves every disagreement by saying, "Off with their heads!" And since the legislature is currently in hibernation, I wonder if spring is ever going to come. No one has the intestinal fortitude to even draft up a resolution and show it to a reporter and say, "Look, I've got this resolution that would end the governor's magic powers," much less ask another senator to sign it, much less introduce it. This is what Chris is saying needs to be done next time so we don't ever get stuck with this again. And it's very possible at the rate we're going in January, we're still going to be doing this stuff. So Chris said this will be the first law he introduces. He introduces it. If it became the law, then if the governor wants to have another 30-day period, she has to be able to convince the majority of the members of the legislature that it's warranted, that it's not just another off-with-their-heads knee-jerk reaction made not in the consultation with their Physicians Advisory Group or even the territorial surgeon. So I would see this is what we call remedial legislation. There's a problem. We need to remedy the problem. The remedy to the problem is to reverse the polarity of the law that's in place right now and say that 30-day emergency ends unless the legislature says you could have another one. So let's give Chris a big hand on this one, Jose. Okay, so then the next item on the card is Dr. Mike Cruz versus the governor. And attorney 17 days in quarantine is an abuse of the governor's authority. This is one of those quarantine horror stories where some people spent 17 days in quarantine. Before I go on to that, I'm going to bring the Ferris wheel to a stop, pull that bar open, and allow another Joe to seat himself. Jump in, another Joe.
Uncle Bob.
Okay, let's close that bar. All right, turn on the Ferris wheel is now operating. Go ahead, another Joe.
Oh, thank you, Uncle Bob. So, I think you're talking earlier about handing possibly privatizing the GMH and handing it over to the Catholic Church. I'm thinking in reference to the Catholic Church, the Catholic hospitals in other countries that help assist in developing countries. Would that be the comparison?
Well, that was one of Michelle's ideas, that to turn it over to a Catholic operating company to operate the hospital. Yeah, and I would not be opposed to that.
That sounds good, Uncle Bob, because the Vatican has much deeper pockets than the government of Guam, I would think. And so, but having said that, was it you or someone else that said on your program, Tall Tales, that in fact this second version of the GMH Guam Memorial Hospital is in existence rather due to the assistance of the Catholic Church? Is that something that you
in 1975, the Catholic Church built a new hospital called the Medical Center of the Marianas. And as a matter of church finance, this has got nothing to do with the Vatican. This is a popular myth that somehow the Vatican funds things in local dioceses. Doesn't happen. But the Catholic Church did build what we have now. It was called Medical Center of the Marianas. It found that it wasn't able to compete profitably with the Guam Memorial Hospital, which of course was receiving a subsidy. So along about 1978, it didn't take long or so, it got into deep financial trouble. And Mr. Wanpat worked with Phil Burton in Congress and got a $25 million. Are you okay? Are you okay, another Joe?
Yeah, I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. A $25 million grant, so the government of Guam bought Medical Center of the Marianas from the Catholic Church, and then moved Guam Memorial Hospital into that building. The ruin of Guam Memorial Hospital stood on the cliff for years and years and years. I think it was only about 10 years ago it was finally torn down. But that's where we got our hospital, which at the time we thought, hey man, we were really getting a good hospital out of this deal. Somehow it's not such a good hospital anymore. Maybe it's because it wasn't properly maintained. Maybe not.
Possibly. What the other point I had to think about was wasn't there a Superfund project awarded here in Guam? It was under the Guterres administration, and did that bring millions of dollars to our economy?
I'm not familiar with that one, another Joe.
You know, when they were digging up all of former NES?
Could be. I've never been that much of an environmental wacko, so that didn't stick in my mind.
Oh, well, I was just thinking, I wouldn't be too opposed to Guam receiving Superfund money if it's in the millions. I wouldn't mind someone calling me an environmental tree hugging wacko, so to speak, if it brings money to our economy. I just thought I'd share that. But anyway, thanks for your time, Uncle Bob. I'll just keep listening.
Well, you know, another Joe, as usual, I have a better idea. And
Okay.
my idea was that instead of arguing about compact impact funds, we should ask the national government to build us a hospital so that we could accommodate all of these habitual residents that come from the islands to the south of us, since that's where a lot of our expense comes from. And the same thing with a prison.
Okay, well, would that include funding to maintain said hospital and prison?
I don't know. You know, when you're negotiating, the idea, you know, when you're selling your car, you ask the other guy to walk around and kick the tires, and while he's doing that, you tell him, you know, this is the best by God car Ford ever built. This is a great car. This car is worth $15,000, but I'm going to let you have it for $14,500. And by the time the guy drives it out of the lot, he pays $11,000 for it because he negotiated, right? You always start out asking for more than what you really want in the negotiation process. So that's how that would work.
Well, I just want to do this one thought about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, okay. I just want to leave you one thought. If I didn't interrupt you.
You may.
Apologies. So the thought will be: there is a song that Sting, known as Gordon Sumner, right, came out with in the '80s. I forget the name of it. I got a mental block going on for some reason. But basically, the lyrics go: "You be careful because at some point, the servant or the newbie, so to speak, becomes a master in control, so to speak." I'm not so good with the lyrics there, but that's the basic gist of it. I don't mind these new capital projects, hospital and prison, as long as we don't become the caregiver to maintain it. And it's another debt that we have to pass on as a gift to our children and grandchildren. But having said that, well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I'll keep listening.
Okay, another Joe. Nice talking to you. Okay, another Joe, and we're going to take a break. We're coming down the home stretch here in Tall Tales.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
Okay, Google. Hey, Siri. Hi, Bixby.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations, check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on the App Store and Google Play or go to thepoint.gu. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Okay, here we are heading down that home stretch. Tall Tales. We are in Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. And you just heard the call to the post, and the starting gate is just opened. Next item on my card here is Mike Cruz versus the government of Guam. And this ties back into what I was talking about here with Chris Duenas' bill concerning the governor's magical powers. And the title of the bill, as you read the article, is Attorney, 17 Days in Quarantine and Abuse of Government Authority. And this is another one of these quarantine horror stories. This time we have Attorney Jacqueline Titano Terlahi coming to the rescue of the EK family. You know, it's a good thing we have lawyers on the island that are willing to take on these cases. Or, you know, some of these people get locked up so tight that they have to pipe sunlight to them. But the lawyers are getting some of them sprung, but it doesn't seem that the government is changing its operation that much. They keep making the same dumb mistakes, etc. But there's a new dimension here. You recall last week, Jackie Terlahi wanted to examine Mike Cruz in one of these court cases. She wanted to ask him questions, and the government's position was, well, he can't. He can't be ordered to come here because he's on active duty with the Army, and he would be forbidden to come in. So then there was talk about Terlahi subpoenaing. I don't know how he came in, but he actually testified in court on Friday. And we have a report from Senator Therese Terlahi as to how it went. And it's shocking, frankly. And it ties back in to Chris Duenas' bill. This is what it says. During the hearing, attorneys brought up testimony presented on Friday by Dr. Mike Cruz, state surgeon, and also the Guam Regional Medical City Chief Executive Officer. Terlahi, who represents several passengers to include the Ike family, said during her closing arguments that Cruz testified they were unaware that there were thousands of passengers who arrived on Guam during the pandemic. Quote, it's scary that the Physicians Advisory Group and Dr. Cruz were unaware of the impact that passengers were having on Wuhan virus, said Terlahi. He believes that passengers are the source of Wuhan virus because we are able to get our numbers lower and lower between June and July before we started to see the increase. She argued, however, that the mandatory quarantine has not resulted in a drop in confirmed cases. Terlahi also said Cruz testified that the governor's Physicians Advisory Group did not recommend the mandatory quarantine, adding that the group preferred home quarantine. Had the government simply acted with the advice for Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that's the feds, or Guam law, then the Ike family would have been in home quarantine and have been done days ago. Instead, this family who lost 2 of their family members are being dragged through a process that is not supported by any evidence that requires their mandatory quarantine for 17 days. So there you go. That's why you can see how important Chris Duenas' bill is. Assistant Attorney General James Canto argued that while Cruz testified that the advisory group of physicians did not recommend mandatory quarantine, they did support the governor's implementation for government quarantine facility and made no other recommendation. In other words, they didn't support it. The governor went ahead and did it, and the physicians group kept their mouths shut. Yeah, the Guam the governor's physicians group choir singing. Are you ready for this? That's it. That's how the choir sounds. And you know who the choir director is? It's Hua Gwen. He with the horse on the foot of his bed. So
that's amazing. Amazing what's said under oath.
Really. So they advised against it. She went ahead and did it, and then they didn't make any other recommendations. Therefore, they must have approved. They must have seen the error in their ways in the beginning. And then it goes on to say the government, in fact, has gotten in their way, and it's been a detriment to their family since they got here. Said Morrison, that's another one of the lawyers. Our primary argument is that hotel quarantine is not necessary. The court should follow the advice of the Physicians Advisory Group that home quarantine is the least restrictive. And that's the test, that the governor has these magic powers She can isolate and quarantine in order to prevent the spread of the disease, but she must use the least restrictive means available. So when you've got a chorus of doctors saying you could do this with home quarantine, she really has no authority to quarantine at all, especially when her territorial surgeon didn't even know she was doing it. Wow. Okay, so I'm getting close to the end of my card here. Final item on the card. This is Trump versus Dubongan. And this is a story that ran in the Post. While waiting for his Wuhan virus test result and trying to get reelected, President Trump told one of his go-to Fox News hosts he would not support statehood for Guam, Puerto Rico, or other American territories. Last week, I had an item on the card where the Democrat strategists were figuring, well, what we need to do is we need to have more states. That means we'll have more Democrat senators, and we'll have better control of the senators. We don't care about the states, what they want or anything. We just want those Democrat senators. But then Trump comes along and said his reason has nothing to do with whether the political status change would be good for Americans on Guam or other territories that might pursue statehood. He's concerned that it's a strategy by Democrats to stack more seats in the House of Representatives and the Senate. They're going to add 2 or 3 new states, Trump said, speaking to Sean Hannity. He appeared to start mentioning Saipan, but stopped. He started his sentence with Sai, but left that unfinished, and then continued with, I heard even Guam. Okay, I got Ron McNinch on the line here. I'm going to squeeze you in, Ron. I'm going to come back to Trump versus Dubongan on Monday, I guess. Good afternoon, Ron.
Hey, Happy Day, Senator. Happy Day, Guam. You know, I just want to say I was really pleased to see that the Guam Post ran that article. I went back to the YouTube and watched the video. I thought it was really interesting. I'm glad to see that, that there was some discussion on it. And also I think that the article from Gaynor was really well done in terms of explaining President Trump's position and just the politics that are going on surrounding that suggestion.
Well, the only thing wrong with the article was, as I mentioned earlier in the program, that the Post needs some way to build in my beep beep in their articles. Yeah, that one. You'll recall that I had to add that because I was being facetious one day and one of my guests took what I said as seriously. So now whenever I'm being facetious and Jose catches it, we get the beep beep. And that's why I called this item on the card Trump versus Dubongan.
Right. Yeah, and we'll talk about some more. I do appreciate your show every day, sir, and we'll certainly follow along with it.
Okay, Rand. See you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
So that's it for another day, another glorious day on Tall Tales. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Adios.